I'm Matsuzaki, a psychiatrist. So if you find yourself washing your hands excessively because you worry they might be dirty, or checking the door lock over and over because you're not sure it's properly locked, that's what we call Obsessive-Compulsive Disorder, or OCD. For this kind of OCD, a social worker who specializes in anxiety and OCD, Nathan Peterson, introduces on YouTube a way to face it with humor. It's both quite entertaining and reasonable, so let me introduce it here. He recommends responding to obsessions with irony or humor on purpose. For example, when the obsession, "my hands might be dirty," comes to mind, you might say something intentionally silly like, "Well, if my hands are dirty, maybe I'll just eat with my feet." The goal is to develop an attitude of not taking the obsession seriously. This is, toward that obsession, a method called verbal value discounting, and it has something in common with the attitude of responding to the obsession with something like, yeah, letting it pass and not taking it seriously when the obsessive thought comes up. He also suggests giving your obsession a nickname. For example, something like Captain Catastrophe or Mr. Clean. The goal is to see the obsession not as your own thought, but as a voice or presence that comes from outside yourself. Instead of thinking, "I'm worried about dirt," you might say, "Mr. Clean is trying to make me wash my hands again." By doing so, you can observe the obsession objectively and reduce your fixation on it. This helps you create distance between your thoughts and yourself, preventing you from being controlled by obsessive thoughts. This is one form of what's called externalization, treating it as something outside yourself. It's also one of the techniques used in defusion, and is considered a reasonable approach. Now, the core treatment for OCD is exposure and response prevention, or ERP, which is one form of cognitive behavioral therapy. This involves intentionally placing yourself in a situation that triggers anxiety and refraining from performing compulsions. For example, for someone who worries about contamination, it means intentionally touching a spot that feels somewhat dirty but still tolerable. That's the exposure, and then waiting without engaging in the compulsive act of washing. In this process, he suggests treating the exposure task like a treasure hunt game and taking on the challenge that way. For example, you find something you're uncomfortable with on your own, and if you do the exposure, you get 10 points. Or if you manage to go a set amount of time without performing the compulsion, you get another 10 points. Something like that. You could make a rule for yourself to earn points that way. And when you've collected a certain number of points, you might reward yourself, say, with some ice cream. It might be even better not to do this alone, but to share it with your family if possible. Well, this can be seen as a way to make exposure and response prevention more engaging and even a little more enjoyable. Of course, humor alone can't completely eliminate the anxiety caused by OCD, nor should that be the goal. It's also not about making fun of people with OCD or downplaying the suffering they experience. However, as a tool to weaken the obsessions of OCD, using humor might be a helpful approach. If you'd like, I'll put a link to Nathan Peterson's video in the description box. Please check it out if you're interested. So if you found this video interesting, please subscribe to the channel and give it a thumbs up. And if you can, share this video with someone who might enjoy it. That's all.